It was doing that the other day. It would just start muting.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order at 5:30 PM. Roll call, can I just declare quorum? All right, I declare quorum. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? I'll make the motion. Second, okay, and can I get a motion to approve the
No,
minutes?
you got to vote on it.
Sorry.
Any
Thank
discussion?
you. Any discussion?
No.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed? Motion passes. Okay, now, can I get a motion to approve minutes from the April 2nd, 2024 meeting? I'll make that motion. Any second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and that passes.
I think for this, it's just a suggestion. You can do it how they did it in public safety. It's like a consent agenda, and then it has both of those pieces in there. That way it's just one motion. Find it. I'm showing you.
Yeah, and I've seen it like that on other ones, so
Yeah.
I just asked,
Yep.
Kim or Diane to lump them together.
Yep.
Okay. All right, any public comments on the agenda item?
No public.
No one online. All right, chairperson comments. I don't have any. That moves us to number 7, an update from Wood County IT.
Yes, I had emailed, yesterday emailed out to ask for a question. I got email back today. They were still in the process. They got the bids back, quotes back for the servers, but they still had some more information on how to get all the computers put in place. They don't have it completely done yet. So I said I'll report that, and then we'll have to have it available for the next meeting if we can have it all available. So they're still in the middle of working on it, almost complete, but not enough to.
So nothing new to report.
No, I just reported it that far.
So we'll move it again to next month.
Yes, and I'm pretty sure by then might have some, but they're doing everything. And I also last meeting I went and made sure they got I sent all the staff out.
Mhm.
How many people had the stations, and I got more back than I realized, so I gave that to them too.
No problem. All right, that brings us to number 8, discussion and possible action on realignment of committees. So in my mind, there's 3 options that we kind of need to go through. The one is obviously leave everything status quo, how it was set up. The second option that I want to talk about is what Betsy had proposed. And that was in the binders, and we talked about it a little bit at the last board meeting, and that's where
Yep.
it was said that to come back through committee. Do you want to talk about?
Yep.
You
So
should have the binder in that material.
Right there.
So essentially I was trying to streamline our committees to kind of, I'm sorry, I'm trying to bring it back up here. To try to just streamline it and combine things. Public Works, trying to combine Public Works and Parks back together. It was like that originally when I first got on the board. Then it was Parks and Cemetery got kind of broken off. We had a lot to talk about because that splash pad was being built, the dog park discussion, all those types of things. What I've come to realize is that, I mean, that's 2 meetings for Public Works Director Martinson to go to, that he's reporting a lot of similar things on the same thing. And then it also means breaking up the budget discussions too, where there's a little bit over here and there's a lot of bit over there, and it still overlaps a lot. So I just thought it'd be streamlined. It'd be more streamlined to put that all into one, and then it would save some time for Ben to maybe not have to come to 2 meetings. It also kind of helps with, I mean, being kind of fiscally responsible on, do we pay all of us to come in for a 15-minute meeting sometimes? I think I would much rather, and this is just me speaking, put another 15 minutes onto a meeting that everybody's already at. And then just kind of renaming some of them, the finance, human resources, and IT, because typically if we do need a bigger purchase for IT, it's got to go through FHR anyway, instead of how we have it now, PIT, now we're doubling, okay, it's gonna go through the PIT committee and now it's gonna go through, and this is, right, this kind of takes a lot of time when you're bouncing things from committee to committee. And then after talking with Mr. Hest, a couple other people, I've actually thought about this for probably the good last 6 to 9 months about having economic development, because that's kind of where we're, I don't want to say lacking, but we are lacking, because everything kind of has to funnel through the village administrator office, and that's how it has been before Dwayne was here. And then you only really have one person really looking at it. So I think if, and in my head, the economic development piece, legislative and property, the economic development, that committee can be a little bit more hands-on, not necessarily doing the day-to-day things, but exploring different options, making connections, networking, those types of things. So kind of more of a working committee. And then obviously with Dwayne, you only here 2 days a week. That's kind of hard to have on top of everything else he has to do, funnel that through. So I think, and just having an eye on it, right? Like it's kind of over here, nobody's addressing it on a monthly basis. So combining that together, obviously public safety is public safety. There's not a whole lot of other things you can combine it with. But that was just my idea on streamlining it instead of having more committees than we really need. I mean, I appreciate the Parks Committee and what it can offer, but I feel like it can kind of be streamlined into Public Works, limiting multiple meetings for people, and then just combining IT with FHR again, instead of bouncing from committee to committee that way. Any questions on that? And I did talk about having citizens on those 2 committees, the economic development and then the parks, the public works and parks piece, trying to bring some more voices to the table, essentially, to give us some input, and then hopefully just build that relationship with the public as well.
So
Yep.
when you're talking about, I know one of the things that came up is if citizens are sitting on those, correct me if I'm wrong, they would not have a vote because they
Right.
haven't been, but they're just really there to kind of help with the discussion.
Yeah,
And we put people in who know something about, for example,
right.
economics or development or pieces like that,
Right,
right? Okay.
Right, and then my hope with the parks recreation piece, I mean, with, let's just say with the public works section, it would be public works, still kind of breaking it out, just like we do for public safety. Right, you have a fire department piece, you have the police department
Yep.
piece, so still doing public works, park, cemetery, recreation, and then the recreation piece, kind of, again, a working piece to that committee. Instead of putting the coordination of different things all on our staff, like Ben and Kim and Diane, mostly, of getting trunk or treat put together, the Christmas light, I think we, along with whoever, if citizens are allowed on that, can kind of pick up those pieces and coordinate that, and just taking that little bit off of their plate. I know it's not a lot of time, but again, it's really not a lot of time for us to be able to do it instead of staff. They have a lot on their plates already. Oh, sorry.
Can I have some
Oh, yes.
comments on her proposal?
Absolutely.
Okay. What I've seen in other communities, even though you see the citizen members don't have a vote, most of my other communities I've seen is usually 3 elected officials, 2 citizens, they all have a vote because that's a quorum. And if you can't get 1 citizen member to come, you still get a quorum. If 2 can't come, you still get, and that's an elected official, you still get a quorum, so the meetings continue to operate. That's why they've always, and the other thing is that once you get a citizen member on, they can't vote, they're gonna lose, they may not lose their interest in it, but you give them a vote, even though you got 3 the 3 elected officials are still the dog and the tail's not wagging it. You see what I'm saying? The other thing is I found it has worked very well in my career is when you have citizens, I've seen always citizen committee. This is the first time I've just seen all just elected officials. The tendency to be the new elected officials come out of those citizen members on the committee.
Mhm,
And that's I've seen it all over, we call it the administrators call it the incubator system.
mhm.
Because you constantly can't find somebody who wants to take interest and become an elected official, even though you got a small community, but if they take the interest in being a subcommittee and they learn the process in that piece, they're not afraid to become elected officials. So that's one of the good things behind it. One more thing I was gonna add is that we can bring it up is like you meet almost every community I worked in. The Finance and Administration Human Resource Committee meets just before the village board meeting.
Mhm.
They only, it's that because you have a clerk that's seeing that meeting. Let's say you have a 7 o'clock village board meeting, they usually meet at 5 or 5:30, and depends on how quick the agenda comes, they can change your time. That way, all the data that comes from finance is to be approved by the village board, unfortunately, they're right up to date. And if there's some HR stuff they want to talk about it and they want to go closed session, they can get it done, but they don't have to bring them forward. But 90% of the time when you put your agenda together, if you didn't use the motion piece, it's like you have finance administration, and a lot of times the staff would put discussion action or just discussion. And if the finance administration, if we didn't get to that, they don't even talk about it.
Got it.
See, because basically you're trying to put your meetings together so your staff isn't going all over the place.
Mhm.
Just a suggestion to your comments so you can put in your records.
I think for the FHR idea, I'd like to ask Diane what she thinks about that, just because the biggest impact. Well,
Yes, sir.
It's on
Mhm.
her, so her feedback I think would be really valuable.
And we would be, but I've seen that from other finance people, they like putting that.
Yeah, and if that's something that she's interested in, I mean, and obviously FHR people would have to agree with it too, but I think,
She's the one you're gonna
she's
really, yeah, she's a kingpin.
yeah, because I mean,
King
huge impact
queen.
on her job. The idea of the citizens voting, I think we might run into a struggle there just because you're gonna have people that feel that they weren't elected into a position, so they really should not have a vote. I think that actually got said at the last board
Yeah.
meeting.
Mhm.
And I do tend to agree
I
with
agree
that.
with that, and the other thing, it can almost have it create the appearance like we're trying to slant things,
Mhm.
rather than allowing the process as the village voted.
I don't have a problem with the citizens being on it.
I think it's a great idea to
I
have
do too.
citizens on it, but I don't, like with different skill sets. That would enhance the process. I think that's a great idea, and I agree that it also can set people up like an incubator, like you said. But I think we have to be careful with that also, because again, that goes back to how people are chosen needs to be a diplomatic thing, so it doesn't go back to, again, setting it up to slant the board one way or the other.
I'm just gonna be the antagonist, right? Antagonist here, just because I've heard the vote thing too. But you have to remember, our plan commission isn't voted, our PFC isn't voted in, but they
They
still,
don't have a vote,
Yes, they do.
not
But
at the board meetings.
not at the
where-
board meeting, but they present things to the board. They have a huge say in it. So I'm just throwing that balancing statement. If we have a lot of non-elected people making decisions, putting it to the board. So I'm just throwing that out there as, I mean, they might not have a decision, a vote on the board, right? But the PFC can choose our fire chief, choose our, you know what I mean? So it's just putting that
Planning and zoning
in there.
commission, you have 2 citizens, the rest are all, 2 elected officials, the rest are all
Mhm.
citizen ones. And every one of your committees is where it's is a recommendation to the village board, it's
Mhm.
not an action, so. And one more thing, I'm gonna not disagree with you, just bringing it for devil's advocate.
That was
Is
what I was trying
that,
to think of.
when we saw in other places, when you have citizen members interested in a community, you go out and you have, the president doesn't select a person, you go and ask who's interested, and they get the
Mhm.
application back in. And what interests you in, so you don't, they show themselves coming to you, you go picking somebody.
Mhm.
I think I just saw Wisconsin Rapids do that, like, hey, we're looking for somebody
Yes.
on whatever committee, so they
Mhm.
put it out on Facebook, there was applications, there was an interview process.
Yes, there is.
Just to keep it, and that's what I would do. That's what I would recommend that we do with this too, is no different
Okay.
that way. Right, I'm not just
That way I'm
going,
trying
out
to,
and
your
choosing who I
concern that
want.
you're bringing up is that
Right.
we don't have any chosen ones put on there.
right,
The appearance of, I'm not saying anybody would have the
right,
I know,
intention, but
by
good
way,
intentions don't go far around here.
when you put an application, you do the process
Mm-hmm.
and that basically. They can applications come and they put their interest in, you can actually take the village board could say, okay, we recommend these four to be appointed. That way everybody gets it. They're not just picked out of, their.
Does citizens end up with the same? I'm thinking about like the laws that govern elected officials, right? So when we're talking about there's a closed session or there's emails going around, I mean, they really fall under those same parameters.
Yes, they do. That was part of the presentation you never got. We were talking about the other day. They do, they have to follow the same parameter.
Okay.
Once you appoint them as a standing committee, they have all the rules and regulations.
Yep.
That elected.
Just like
official has.
PFC does,
Okay.
right?
Mhm.
So
So is the
that's,
planning commission.
yep,
Mhm.
You have anything, Rick?
No, I do not. Thank you.
I know.
Are we gonna go through option 3 though also?
Yes, so I kind of thought about how to put this together, and I want to talk about option 3 before then we kind of decide if there's a direction. So on Saturday, when we met, there was this idea, we were kind of talking about what other people do, and one of the ideas that came up was doing a committee of the whole and a board meeting. So there'd be 2 meetings. All board members would attend both hypothetically, right? Like I get things come up, but the idea is that all board members would attend both. That committee at the whole is really where a lot of the work is done. And then the recommendations go to the board per usual, and that board meeting, you know, should hypothetically run pretty quickly because we've all been there for discussion. Some of the reasons, and I have questions, but some of the reasons why I initially found this appealing is, I ran some numbers really quickly here, but like I'm a person who's on 3 committees plus a board meeting, so that's four meetings a month if Parks and Rec meets normally again. Last year I was on Parks and Rec, we did meet monthly. I mean, there were times that I think there was a time when I was there for like 13 minutes, right?
Mhm.
And you still get paid. Well, so when I run those numbers and we're talking about for a year, and this isn't factoring in any extra meetings, which of course we know happened, that happened this past year many times, but I mean, you're talking about $1,200 for one human to go to all of those meetings, right? And I think people are either on 3 committees or 2, right? There's no one who's on 1. So, and this is, when I ran this not even with committee, like the chair money or the president money. I'm just saying like, I watered it down as much as I can to say like the cheapest one of us, right? So like this would have been me last year. I was on 3 committees. It's $25 a meeting. So I said for one committee, 25 times 12, that's $300 a year. And then I really was doing that 4 times a month, right? So times it by 4, you get that 1,200. For people on 2 committees, and again, taking that base pay, not saying that you're a chair of a committee or you're a president, it's $900 a year, right? And so when you start to do that math for everybody, you know, well, and I don't know how many do we have on 3 versus 2?
You could say half and half.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
So I'm not texting, I just want to do the math. So you say half and half.
Yeah.
Well, so 1,200 times 4 of us
sure.
is 4,800. And 900 times 3,
Mhm.
2,700. So we're talking 75K right there. And again, that's a low number.
And that's not the additional meetings. That's not,
Yeah,
Right.
it's not the additional meetings, and it's a low number because I'm not accounting for, you know, the
The
chair of the
extra.
committee gets
Yep.
extra money, the village president has a little bit extra in there too, not accounting for any of that. So that probably is a low number. If we would look, and I get this is a bigger discussion than just money, so this is just one point I'm making, right? But if we went to, you know, 7 of us are at 2 meetings, we're talking about dropping that number down to like 5,800. So, you know, it's not like you're saving buckets and buckets of money, but I remember sitting in a budget meeting and saying, well, their office budget, we're gonna have to slash it by $200, right? Like, we're pitching pennies so much at a village level that I'm like, well, $1,000 could go to something. So that's just one piece of it. Or a couple $1,000s could go to something. And again, just as we're talking so much about being fiscally responsible, I think that's an easy place to do it if we can. Okay, money's only one thing, but then it goes beyond that to making sure we're doing our due diligence within committees, right?
Mhm.
One of the things I noticed throughout my first year is I felt like we'd do something in committee, we'd feel good about it, it'd go to the board when everyone's sitting there, and then we'd hear, no, this isn't right, this actually just happened, you need an MOU first, you need to go through this process
Yep.
first, you have to do that, and then it goes back to committee. And it just feels like this circle around, or it goes over to this people or that people. The budget alone, my goodness, it was like ping pong, right? It's going here, there, and it just feels like there's a lack of communication. And I know the wheels of government move slow, but could we do it in a more efficient way? Right now, it
Mhm.
doesn't seem efficient.
Mhm.
And I don't know if some of that's like, we're not always reading our minutes or coming prep to the board, or, you know, doing our due diligence diligence on the front end. And I know I'm guilty of that at times, right? But I just feel like there was a lot of times when things would move to the board and then have to go back and forth because, you know, we have newer committee members that didn't know what to ask for, or, you know, Joe and Eric's institutional knowledge is phenomenal. They do catch things that I
Right.
wouldn't have the foggiest thought of, you know, so just to kind of fix some of that, I think would be ideal. And it just gets all of us moving forward together. You know, the idea of things like dying in committee, I don't love either, right? You know, we're all elected officials, and I think things have died in committee that, you know, other people didn't get a say on, or get to provide feedback in. So that's kind of where I was initially coming from. Some questions I have though is, and I did reach out to Ben today and chatted with him just to say, like, what do you think? What am I missing? Would there be a downside to this, right?
Mhm.
So
What part are you talking about when you're saying downside? Which of the scenarios?
the third. So the
Yeah,
idea
we're
of the
just talking about
committee
the
as a
third
whole
right
and
now.
doing two, yeah, so right now I'm just
I can
focused on the
add to
third and
Mhm.
talking about if we do a committee of the whole, we're all there, we run through FHR, we run through PIT, public safety, all of that in one meeting, and then later it goes to the board meeting. So just that side of it, I was like, well, what's the downside? So one question I have, FHR. It's always right close to the end, right? And I don't think it's fair to be like, we're gonna do a committee of the whole and throw all of that at Diane at the last second to prepare for a board meeting. So that was a
Right.
concern I had. And then I kind of questioned too, like, well, and maybe that's not my area, but the proving of all the bills paying, I guess,
I can tell how that works.
I'm surprised that always has to go through FHR. Is that something that's typical for every community?
Depends how the committee wants to do their work.
Okay,
So I can add some things that you brought up, but
sure.
maybe, I don't want to step on the minute trustees. So is Rick having to say, or they should go first?
I don't have anything to say right now. Right now, I'm just listening. Thank you.
Okay. When you do a committee as a whole, and you set the agenda up, you set it up for each department. We don't talk, that's a department. So you basically, when I've done another community department, each department goes through their piece. The department's got to prepare you for that, to give you information, et cetera. During that period of time, if there's not enough information, it doesn't go to the village board. It just says, we refer it back to a committee as a whole.
Mhm.
So, but you have to wait for a month anyway to get more information and pieces and problem. But then when you do feel comfortable, then it goes out of the committee, goes right to the village board, excuse me, well, like the village board or city council. I've seen them go to village board and city council, and they even put them a lot of them on a consent agenda. So when you put that on a consent agenda, because you already had it, and at the point you say the items are all in there, which ones you want to pull? There might be someone or a couple of them that you have more information you want to talk on, and you pull those out, and you vote on the rest of them because you already had your recommendation of the committee. So that goes fairly quickly. Your second meeting is really not that long at all. Then you go for next following month again, you go back into your committee as a whole. The staff start realizing that when you get done with the committee as a whole, they got questions, they got to make sure that gets done for the next meeting. Or they will say, we have these following questions, we're gonna move it forward to the board, subject to these answers being taken care of. So it gives those staff or 2 more weeks to get your information. Then you can vote on that meeting again. A lot of them do that. They'll say, okay, we'll move this forward. subject to having this done. And if that's done, and you can vote on it, because you have it on your agenda again, you can have it the same item as a consent agenda. We're gonna pull this one out because we had concerns that such, I've seen that where you pull that out then, so it gives staff 2 more weeks to work on something.
Mhm.
You move things along much quicker that way. You get things, you get another, and then contracts are coming in place. Your bidding person thing, your public works is a big lot of your bidding stuff, to bring it to the committee, you can bring it, everything's to do with that committee portion. There may be, on a contract, there's always some contract piece, something missing, because you get this in place, then when a contract comes that day, you have a full contract to sign on. And then, and basically, Ben does that work, and Ben, instead of him writing up a report, he doesn't write reports, but basically write a quick one. I got all things all in place. It's trusting your staff.
Mhm.
So it's trusting your staff, and basically you'll sit here a lot of times and say, and when you have a come up and the committee members did not hear it, they'll look at the staff, well, what do you think, Diane, or something? You don't have this. No, I didn't get a chance to respond to that.
Mhm.
But community, and the community as a whole, you sit all together one time.
Mhm.
Now, how do you handle the finance? Community as a whole is fine. What you do is she's always on a monthly basis.
Mhm.
And basically you show the bills that she has at that time. And then when it comes to the additional bills are presented to the village board. You
At
get
the
to see them
board
again at the board meeting.
Okay.
And basically you all act on it. Because you don't need approval from the finance committee. You're basically the village, all the finance committees are recommendation. All these subcommittees are recommendations.
Okay.
And even your committee as a whole is that we move forward, it's a recommendation. What I have found is that if you have a clerk, they meet just once. You got a police chief, you got them all, they meet once. What normally is done is that this is so you fair to the staff, you put them in a rotation, let's say police and officer first, we work second parks, what do we do? Then you rotate it to the next meeting.
Mhm.
You rotate the agenda next meeting so that they're not first again. And 90% of the time, and then basically, I would always say, or as the chair would say, okay, are any more questions to the chiefs? None, you're dismissed.
Okay.
And that way they're in for their period, but they get their turn in the cycle.
Mhm.
And a lot of them get to the point where I've seen them come in and they'll have a cell phone there. And they'll call them up, say, you're coming up. So they'll come out of their office, come in, they're in. They don't have to sit here and wait until someone else's.
Mhm.
But basically then the citizens, they said to the community hall, listen to all the stuff. They usually don't show up at your second meeting. They show up for the first one.
Cause a lot of the
Yeah, they all have question period. And if they hear something and they want to come the second time, they'll have some more questions. But usually the comments for the comment from the public is always on the agenda.
Mhm.
I've never seen them where you have open comments. It's right in your ordinances, the comments are from an agenda. And then you say to them, someone's raised their hand and they'll say, what's that like to have something else? Would you let president or no, we'll make sure it's on the agenda for your discussion next time.
Okay.
It's, you can do it and clean it up as your ordinance and you clean up as your agenda. And your agenda is really, actually, you look at the ordinance, it says committee reports. That's it.
Mhm.
You can set your agenda, right now you set them up as reports and motions, to be honest with you, tell me how long your meeting's been going, because basically when this works, usually the committee as a whole can go 2 hours for
Yeah,
sure.
I'm sure.
Mhm.
Yeah. But then sometimes 3 if you got a lot, and then you may have closed sessions in it.
Mhm.
And like time you get to come to closed session, you make a motion. Out of closed session, we agreed to concept, but we gave a couple of system items to the staff to get for it, and you can put that closed session again on your next village board agenda. And you go through it, you usually, they go through them within about, you get your answers and they come out of closed session, you approve it. So whatever you write your agendas, whatever you do, you can always redo them if you need more working reports, you can do it at your next meeting.
Mhm.
What happens is the staff, I found that the staff loves it because they're not coming to all these different meetings. Elected officials like they're not coming. However, there's always certain elected officials like that meeting check. There's gonna be 1 or 2. I want my check for me. You turn right around, you look at your budget for the whole thing,
Mhm.
and you turn around and say, salary for the trustee is this, salary for the village president is this, salary for the vice president is this. You kind of think about meetings, and that's your salary, base salary for the whole year.
kind of what you would have been getting paid normally coming to all those meetings,
Yes.
correct?
You calculate it out because you look at, and Rick has done it already. He's got the budget line. He's got the budget line, says village board, one big lump line, one sum in that piece. I look up there, I should look there. And be one lump sum in it. And if you take a look at it, Diane knows how many meetings, so remember she gives you a piece, how many meetings you're gonna pay? She's got the history,
Mhm.
every year, the history of who's who. Or I mean, you can, what you were looking for, she can give you an average real quick.
So how do you make people accountable for coming though?
That's
Like, I
what
don't- I
I
don't
was
love
just
the
gonna
idea.
ask,
Get lost with
Mhm.
that.
I don't love the idea of salary
Yeah.
because then people could be like, I'm getting paid anyways.
right?
How many been come, basically, if you set your portion up and say, do you still count you for coming? You put your name down. And you can set up to the point where you will get your prorated salary. 100% is this much salary.
Yeah.
And you say, okay, you only came to 80% of the meetings, that's all you get.
Or
80% salary.
you could still do by meeting, really. You could be like, if you come to the committee meeting.
Yeah.
It's this. If you come to the whole board meeting, it's this. So I mean, you still
You
can,
can still do it by meetings. A lot of people will do is you can do it by meetings. Yeah, I would do it. You still do it by meetings, but you set the total amount that you got in your budget. And then you say you get paid, you guys get paid for coming to the village board meeting?
Yeah, you get
Mhm.
paid for the village board meeting, you get paid by committee meeting, but again, that's sometimes where I go like, sometimes we have a 20-minute meeting and you're getting paid the same amount that you do for a 2-hour meeting. It doesn't make a lot of.
What
happens?
happens though is
People
that,
work outside the meetings and put time in
Absolutely,
also, so that when you look at that
Mm.
meeting,
yeah,
yeah, but the problem is
absolutely.
that when you'll say, well, I'm only going 2 meetings a month, I'm losing things. That's why you look at a salary portion of it. And you still can count but you gotta understand, you're doing 3 a month or 4 a month, now you're only doing 2 a month.
Right,
Mhm.
So but you do it per meeting, I think you're cutting yourself, you do the salary portion.
yeah, and see, I wouldn't have a problem still sticking to the same amount and going down to 2 meetings a month. Like, I don't think, I don't know. If
Mhm.
anyone's doing this to get rich, then
Turn the wrong business.
they're in the
I
very
already
wrong
know
business.
one.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's all good. I've got a question about voting. If you're a committee as a whole, would it just be the committee members that would vote? Would it be the
That
whole
would be the
board?
Whole board.
I got
Yep.
this.
Okay, so
Yep.
there's really no committees, it's just the
No.
whole board hearing
board.
everything and voting on it.
You would just break the agenda down, kind of like how we already do.
Okay.
And you'd be
Per
voting on
topic.
each item on the agenda.
Okay, so all 7 board members would be voting on all of the stuff for all the committees.
And there's where you'll find if something's in the board, in the committee as a whole, and it get killed in the committee whole, then it does not go to the village board. Because you already read your first
You've
crack
already-
at it.
But that's fair because you got 7 people there. that-
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. And then
Um,
also finding a quorum, finding a quorum is kind of nice too, because then you're not limited to a smaller chunk.
I have a couple thoughts. I don't know if we would, I think that we need to like have it in black and white.
Oh,
What
yes.
would this cost and what would this cost
Oh,
and
yeah.
what would this cost? To evaluate. And with the 2 meetings, the one thing that we do benefit from with the committee structure is something can't get done in one committee because of time restraints, deadlines. It ends up shifting to the next ideal committee to still be able to potentially get it to the board. That's one thing that we would not necessarily have that luxury. The other thing that I like the idea of only having 2 meetings a month. That's incredibly convenient. I don't know if we'll get the efficiency out of it. If we didn't have a committee structure to rely on to, okay, can you guys look at this and can we have it ready to roll? I worry about that being lost. And then the other thing, long meetings. We can't get through some of our short meetings with everybody staying focused. I would be really concerned with, and everybody's so, has so much going on. I would be concerned with people showing up to the meeting, not going through a thicker packet, not really being prepped.
Shame on them.
Mhm.
But then they get to vote. where the committee structure, you have people that are a little more tuned into it. That's their, their understanding, their experience. But and then the other thing that I think could potentially be a significant problem, people on our board don't always behave appropriately. So if we had 2 meetings a month, the possibility of those 2 meetings being hijacked is high
Hijack the who?
by, dramatic displays.
So we had that discussion at the staff Saturday,
Mm-hmm,
and the control of the meeting is the chair.
mm-hmm,
And I'm not being mean to anybody, but I've seen your good chairs, but you're weak control chairs. You're not strong
mm-hmm.
control. And pardon? Yes, you can do it to me right now. And I'd shut right up. To be honest with you, I would. And because I've had a good relationship with your president, I've been discussing that with her, and it's hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
But once you do it once or twice, you get control of your meeting then.
Mm-hmm.
You get complete control of your meeting. And it's responsibility of the president and the chair. It's in those 101 sessions that we talked about last week. And that should stop. I've seen what's going on. I have been in a meeting where someone started swearing another one, and bang, 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 and he didn't shut up. And the village president, bang, meeting adjourned. I'm gonna ask for a meeting to be adjourned. He can do that, or she can do that.
So and
And basically what they did is I make a motion, on my motion for recess.
Recess.
Recess. And someone will second it right away, and then the guy, you just kind of say, either you want to relieve you, if you want to leave from the meeting, you want to continue the meeting, you no longer gonna have, I'm not giving you the floor. If you're gonna block or the floor, and that's when you usually have remember they have these places, they have someone who is controls sergeant of arms. Oh, sergeant of arms, you have a sergeant of arms, and you say, "Sergeant, please remove that member." And you can do that. That's court board rules or Robert rules. And I'm just I'm so strong on that because I was in the county board. And by God, you didn't get a chance to speak until you get recognized. And that's one thing you're gonna do here. Some people will speak, and if I was someone speaking, I was sitting, can you go for a second? Saying that, I'd go, like, you dress me first, you don't dress, wait, that person will turn around and say, I want to speak before, and like.
if we could get things
That's
reeled in, I think that I like the idea of 2 meetings.
But I'm
But
telling
I
you,
don't
it's a
think we're
chair.
ready now. I think it would be too risky, and it would make us actually, because we've known there's a problem.
Well, basically, if you end up want to go that route, you have to put a whole, right word I would use and is a proposal. Lay it all out, everything in place. This is what it does, your agenda, everything's they can have it. So they can tear it all apart too.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, if you're gonna do something like that, I recommend you do it as a committee as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Just that one item on an agenda. So you got 3 things you're gonna, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm gonna give it back.
No problem.
I can see one of your pen.
Chair, I just wanted to respond. So the second piece where you said you still feel like it's good to have people in charge of certain committees, and that kind of came up on Saturday too, is okay, like right now, we know, for example, we've got to be ready for PIT. We have to read the materials. I still like the idea of saying we're committee as a whole, but you people, here's your focus, right? Like,
And I think that's how they do it, like in Nakusa, I think they run committee of the whole and then the board, but they still have committees within it. So
right. So like, not that they're
They
voting
give them
power.
responsibility, say, so-and-so you're responsible for this piece, so-and-so you're responsible for that, so-and-so responsible for that, for so-and-so, let's say, the right person. Joe, you're gonna be responsible for public safety issues on a portion of it. You're gonna be responsible for PIT or they come portion of it, and then you can actually you can be really good, you get lawn, you're responsible for what you call it. That commission then with those department heads start working with those people. And basically, this also puts more work on your department head. They need to be prepared more for when they walk in the door. I'm not negative or anything, instead of making phone calls into each one of them and telling them this is what we're going to do, this is going to do, and kind of cook that up. decisions are made in this committee stuff before you walk in. Some members, some people just make phone calls to some of the trustees. And the meeting's kind of decided, or yeah, I like that idea, and then you approve it in the meeting. And I'm nothing negative of any trustees, but I can see that does happen.
Okay, so kind of
Done.
just, does anyone else have anything to add? Any questions?
I don't have any questions, just a couple of comments.
Okay.
I like the thought of all of the board members hearing the things on the different committees and having specific people being in charge for those, because then you get kind of a quorum with the board, so you're not repeating a lot of the stuff at the second board meeting.
Mhm.
They have to put some
Okay.
stuff together.
Thanks, Rick. So all that said, you know, like Dwayne said, we probably should put it together. And I know if this went to the board, it's gonna be, I would like a document in front of me so I can
Mhm.
see,
Right,
I
right.
know I want to review this. And so I don't think that we're ready for that yet. I mean,
Mhm.
thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah, I think there needs to be more work on that, and it, like in black and white, everything, here's the options.
So, okay,
I agree with that. That I think we need to put a proposal together and think it through and then present it to the board.
okay. So is this something that we want to continue for discussion in later meetings and maybe come with ideas? Like, so this is a question for me as a new chair, right? How do we, you know, because we shouldn't be emailing. Can we email about something like this? Because it's,
Yes, as long as
Mm.
nobody replies all. You could throw out a format of what, you know, might be a way of looking at, just, these are some thinking points. And then with the reminder, don't anybody reply all, because that's what would create a quorum.
or can I put something together, send it out and say, here are initial thoughts, print it out, make comments, let's talk about it at the meeting?
That's how you do it.
That's the way to do
I was
it.
gonna say, each one of us should. Right, look what the ordinance, this is how I would suggest the ordinance, this is how I would suggest the agendas for all of the things. Bring that to the next meeting, work through it, kind of make a final document, then bring that one to the board.
Okay.
Is my thought. I mean, it might take more than one, but I'm just saying, like,
Right.
bring it, like, that's kind of our homework, if you will.
The thing that worries me a little is what's the goal? Like, what is our goal? And I think staying focused, what do we want? What kind of outcome do we want to create here? I don't want to see us with each election cycle, things getting altered. Where it's just like, okay, or with each administrator or each, everything like, okay, now it's going to be this way and then now it's going to be that way. I think, so being thoughtful of, you know, what is the end goal?
Well, and I think that depends on who's in these seats and who's in the village president seat. It doesn't matter if it's me or whoever. Right now, this is the issue I'm having, not having it, it's just, this is what has come to light is, okay, I want to try to make 4 committees. In order to do that, I have to go through this whole rigmarole. Again, bad choice of words, rigmarole, whole process to change the village ordinances so that I can do that. And that's kind of what the village president should be able to have some kind of, because you're right, otherwise, I mean, this is 1 year into my term and we're just this kind of discussing it now because I've realized that this isn't working. But I think every board village president should be able to have a little bit of how to create their own thing. Mine is I want to try to streamline things. The next president that comes in, either the next term or the term after, can say, okay, but I want to break it all apart again. But in order to do that, you have to, and that could be 7 new people by that time that have a new thing, and then it's recreating ordinances and all that. So I'm kind of stuck
That's-
between a rock and a hard place on
I
that.
can see that, and that's exactly what scares me, that in our effort to try to improve something, we don't want to become part of the cycle of this continuous evolution that then loses efficiency. So, I mean, I wonder if we back up and what is the goal? What is your vision of what you want to accomplish? What do you see as the challenges? And what do you see as potential possibilities? If we first looked at that in black and white, like what is the goal? And then discuss, you know, how to bring it, I'm really concerned with each year we change and then literally the work gets left on the
Okay.
wayside without intention, but that,
I do want to move us along. I will say really, again, on Saturday, this came out of an idea for
Mhm.
fiscal responsibility and efficiency, because right now, and again, I've only been on 1 year, but I don't feel like it's an efficient process that we have going, which isn't, in my mind, what's best for the village. So those were kind of the two pieces. Dwayne, did you
Can-
have?
Sure.
Oh, Rick, go ahead.
Can I have one comment to kind of piggyback on what Tiara was talking about. I think if we start with what we see the shortcomings are and the goals for it, and then present it that way, at least you're trying to identify some shortcomings, and I think it would go a lot farther in trying to sell it to, or what are we trying to do and why?
Mhm.
Thanks, sir. Dwayne?
Okay, you are the legislative committee. The legislative committee provides all these ordinances and folks should look through them. You have the good start. This is a working project. And so you can be, you can look at it as like you had now discussion, possible discussion, possible action on a working alignment of the committee. You got to keep putting over and over. For example, out of this discussion, if you want to say, okay, any motion, let's all go back. And next meeting we have our pros and cons. You'll have yours, you have yours,
Mhm.
you have yours, and Rick has his.
Okay.
And that's how you start before you drafting anything, before you put anything in it, and then you can set your goals and objectives on your next meeting. So people see that you're not just throwing
Throwing it.
something against the wall and have a stick.
well, to add to that,
You want more done, you go ahead and give yourself homework.
we could put out asking the full board to where we don't bring a final product to the board and then they shoot it down, put out to the full board. These are what we see as potential challenges. Give us
I'm in
some
the meeting
input
longer
on
now.
this, that, and every other thing.
I'm in the
Where-
meeting much longer.
They get some skin in the game
Yes,
in the
in the meeting
beginning
right
so
now.
that we're
Yeah.
not sitting at the table and they're shooting it out of the water in one
Okay.
stroke.
What you do, sorry, your
I
chair.
just want to keep moving us on. I mean, and that's where I go, gosh, if we had a committee of a whole, that'd be really easy to do.
But at the committee of the whole, there also is the part of, let's keep moving along,
Yes.
where the work may not get done.
Okay, so speaking of that, next time, are we all in agreement that we can come with pros and cons
Mhm.
to the idea of as a whole, and we'll start with that, pros and cons. You know, and I did talk to Ben a little bit, but I could reach out to Diane and Kim as well and kind of get their feedback.
You're like it.
Okay, all right, so
Pros and cons.
Madam Chairman,
yes.
one quick, what did you hear from Ben? Was it positive? What, was he in favor? Did he have any feedback?
So it was initially positive, but I do want to say I just threw it at him today in a 5-minute conversation. So I don't know that it's fair to say he was like, yes, let's do it. But initial feedback was, yes, I can see the pros from that. But again, I don't want to put a value on how he felt just because.
Yep.
You jumped
He
in.
wasn't in shock, and
No, and Ben, I mean, Ben's, I feel like he's so easy to work with and always open to the possibilities. But again, I'd like to give him some time to think about it before I would get a final. So then.
thank you.
Pros and
Change is
cons of
hard.
what?
Pros and cons to the idea of going to committee of a whole, the 2
She is.
meetings, okay?
Mhm.
And I will reach out to Diane and Kim and see if they have feedback. Beyond that, so now, okay. Number 3 is off the table for right now. We're at number 1, leave everything the same, or number 2. And I know this isn't just in the meantime, and we may be switching things later, but even if we went to committee of the whole, my question is, do we want to entertain that idea of moving IT below FHR?
And then renaming the economic
See,
development,
And then
Piece.
renaming PIT to economic development legislation
And
and
then-
property.
public works and parks. Merging those.
I
two.
think we're jumping ahead without having the conversation of what do we see as the challenges and what's the goal? Determining what are the needs, I think is the first part. What would be the goal outcome we want to create, and then starting to brainstorm
Are you talking about the committee as a whole?
about making any changes with it.
Cindy, but I think,
if we-
I
Because
think she's-
we're more or less looking at how can we create the process that's gonna be more efficient, get the work done, and do it most effectively.
you should take, I'm going to interrupt, you take one
Yes,
bite at the
Wayne.
apple at a time. If you are going to take the existing community structure and kind of want to do combining, that's where you start talking about that first, before you even talk about a community whole. Because you want to get, that's. your
Yeah, I think that this is something we can talk about now, because even if we move to a committee of a whole,
Right.
then we would just set it up in the agenda like this.
Hmm.
So, I don't have any problem with moving IT over, just because we've been dealing with this. Here's the amount of money you would have to spend. Yeah, that's gotta go to FHR. So that does make sense to me. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, does anyone have a problem with us entertaining a motion? Well, should we break it down apart, right? Like, IT over to finance and human resources, feedback on that, the issues.
Can I ask a question about IT?
Yes.
Right now, there's a spend coming that's looming before us.
Yep.
What other decisions are IT based that may come up that not involve finances?
The other one would be the website coming down the pike. And again, that would be
It's tied to payment.
tied to payment.
Okay, is there anything that is
Otherwise-
is there anything that's IT related that's not financial?
Well, kind of, yeah, like the management of the website, the how, what gets on there, what's,
But that's gonna be a
That's all.
staff issue, but
It's all being, you put in IT with finance.
right.
I
Not
mean,
with
it's
that
not
hard.
in legislation, it's
Mhm.
not in
Nope.
any of our written in code or whatever.
Because right now it's on this committee. And
Mhm.
if you're moving it over because of the anticipated expenditure, is that I guess, is that a one-time, a two-time, or is that a frequent occurrence? For IT as a financial expenditure?
Generally frequent, but then also, it's also, we don't really talk about IT unless it's something bigger. Generally,
Okay, I'm just trying to understand if it's just this one-time move or it's really does belong there. Because if there's issues and,
It'll be-
80% of them are not financial.
Maybe she's gonna be this one-time move. Second's gonna be, well, you got this computer's going on, you gotta replace computers, those are in the financial again. We were talked about as staff, well, we can use these computers for a period of time, so eventually those will come up again. So it's not just the plain server, it's individual individual
equipment.
equipment. And then also it's gonna be the website, that's going to be on a portion. So within a year, you may have, like this year is a big portion of it, but in a year, you may have 2 or 3 items that'll come to IT.
So
That-
most of the decisions just with regarding IT are financial, is what
Yes,
I'm
they
hearing.
are. Yes, they
Okay,
are.
then it
Mhm.
makes sense to be in that.
I find them there all the time. Mhm. I find other places, we don't even identify it as a committee. IT belongs underneath finance and human resource, and they take care of it. You don't even give it a committee name to it.
Okay,
Okay,
Mhm.
so
thank you.
do we want to entertain these separately? I mean, do we need tell me what does the motion look like? So make a motion to move IT under finance and
That's it.
human resource management.
There's a motion right there. You doing
I'm
it?
still at the point that I think we're ahead of the game, so I wouldn't be supporting a motion at this time. I think we need to get the full board to understand the goal.
Okay.
They don't understand the goal, to get people invested, we gotta understand what's the goal, and I think putting feelers out to bring that to the table is gonna have everybody more receptive.
I hear what you're saying. Rick, where are you at? Do you want to second the motion, or do you
Are we doing just for IT?
just for IT? So the motion was motion to move IT under finance, human resources. And
I
I'm,
could second that motion due to the fact that most of IT is financial.
okay, so motion is seconded, discussion, I know Tier, you
So we
kind of
have
said your
to
piece.
change the ordinance for that.
Mm-hmm.
So see, I think that's a part of the bigger picture that,
Is this motion just to bring it to the board?
Yes.
Then
Just
the
like-
board can have discussion and vote it up or down.
Correct.
Mhm.
So, okay, any further discussion?
No,
Alright. All in favor? Say
I,
aye. All opposed? Say no,
opposed,
okay. So,
strictly for the reason,
Yeah. You
I'm
bring it
not
up.
no, and
opposed
that's,
to it.
we hear what you're saying, no problem.
I'm not opposed to it, I just think that there's getting people invested and getting the understanding, and because I don't understand. So I can't really,
Okay,
I mean,
that's
I,
fair.
I think we need to state what our goal is and discuss it as a committee.
And you know why?
Hmm.
Nothing against,
But motion passes, goes to the board.
right?
Okay, so that motion passes. You don't vote in this, no.
Nope.
Unless there was a missing person.
Correct.
Got it. Not a missing person.
Missing person.
Oh, my goodness. I'm doing so well at this already.
Missing, absent, whatever.
Okay.
Not in the back.
Can I make one comment, please? When we do bring this motion to the board, I think it would be worthy with some explanation of why we're proposing this.
Are you talking like a write-up, Rick?
Or at least a discussion of,
Explanation.
since we think IT is very financial and based, that we present this.
Yep.
Maybe I should go right up.
And will
Is
for
it-
the record, I think that it makes sense. But I think the part where it's about changing ordinances, it makes logical sense to me. That makes sense, but I am a little worried about changing ordinances, and I just think we need to look at the bigger picture. What is the goal in the bigger picture so that we can really tune in on what path do we want to take to reach this goal?
But what-
Okay,
yeah, okay.
let's move on. So then the next part was, do we want to rename
Rename.
PIT and include that economic development piece? So it would be called Economic Development Legislative and Property.
Correct.
So really, we're just moving out the technology and putting
Planning.
in.
And the planning,
And planning and putting in
economic
economic
development.
development.
Oh, not planning.
Planning commission. Doesn't
Right,
belong
that's
here.
what I mean. It shouldn't be
Oh,
in
because
PIT.
planning is the planning commission and it should have
Right,
been in there.
but I'm
Right.
saying like get planning out because it shouldn't be long. It doesn't belong in here anyway.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a motion to rename PIT to the Economic Development Legislative and Property Committee. Again, because IT is possibly being moved over and the planning commission is its own entity. Any second?
Can we have discussion
After just,
before?
after you
this section.
second.
So you can second
s-
only for discussion.
Yep.
And still,
I'll second it for discussion.
any discussion?
I'm-
Tiara.
I'm guessing that the planning part of it wasn't like the planning when it was created. It wasn't, I don't believe, this would be a Joe question, but I believe the planning part of it basically is the economic development part. That's the goal of that, I believe, when that was created. So again, that comes, I mean, we would be taking the IT out,
Mhm.
but I just am worried about each year, we're like changing it up, because it is, that planning piece is the economic development part.
So we're just then
That's the way it's
we're just-
operated.
we're renaming it to something that's more specific so people know what planning means. I mean, I don't
See,
have a-
I agree with that we need to incorporate economic development somewhere in the committee structure. So if someone has we're positively driving it forward in some way, shape or form. So
Mhm.
it's in front of us. And if it's just verbiage renaming it, then I think it's appropriate because then people will actually look at it as economic development. I did not understand that planning was economic development. And I think this village strongly needs some economic growth.
Mhm.
All right,
Can I speak? Can I
any
speak?
further discussion, Dwayne?
When I had a chance to go through the ordinances, I seen Boz made those changes in his ordinance last time. I don't know if you knew that he did that. In the portion, he put planning and into in the PIT, in discussion, he has planning. And he had in the ordinance where I was doing the whole, and I was taking it out. Because the way he had it put in there is planning, like planning commission. And I noticed while he was here, you didn't have any planning commission meetings. So you limited, so that's what
I think
I.
he was a one-man planning commission.
Yeah, and so that's why I saw, you have a planning commission, is a very strong commission body. They do a lot of work. And immediately it was put into this committee. Matter of fact, even Ben came to me, he says, you do the ordinance change, let's take it to the planning committee. I said, no, to this grace, no, it's gotta go to planning commission. Even not on purpose, but just said, no, I disagree with you, and that's okay, let's talk. But basically, when I talked to him, he realized he went back to ordinance change. So it's confusing by having that in. I could see the way he had put it together. That's a little history. I apologize for pontificate.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
I'm gonna abstain. And I'm gonna change my last vote to abstain. I just don't feel like I'm ready to
Okay.
make that decision.
You got it in your minutes.
Yes, I do.
Thank you. All right, and any opposed? All right, that motion passes.
Can I make a comment for you, ma'am?
Yes,
Every one of these motion you're making is subject to ordinance amendments.
okay, so do I need to be doing something different?
No, but just, I think that if you're gonna take it
Just so we're-
to, you could take it to the village board. I think you may, when you get done on these, all this should be subject to ordinance change, because if you just go through and start doing it, you need to see it in the ordinance act.
Okay, so do I need to reword any of this, or is that something at the board meeting to amend
Well,
it to say?
You just have to amend the ordinances then to reflect the changes.
Okay, so we do the
Correct.
motion pending an ordinance, do you know?
Well, this committee would do the ordinance change.
Okay,
So you're taking it forward to make a change.
Yep.
And when you get it to the village board, you're gonna approve it. There you say subject to ordinance change.
they say subject to ordinance change.
It's
It
all
comes
gotta
back
come
here
back.
and go back
I'm
around.
kind of following up on what Tiara's been doing.
Yeah,
Is you actually gotta have reasons for why you want it, but when you start changing ordinances. You want to have a reason for why you're doing it and your purpose behind it, so that's gonna be written up in your reports. I can help you on those.
for the next board meeting.
Yes.
Okay, loving this job.
I'll help you.
No, well, I've done a lot of ordinances. I know what you're trying to
I'll
do.
learn.
Mhm.
Then the
That's what we're here
third part
for.
of this was Parks, Rec and Cemetery, so. In a nutshell, do we want to combine those two? Anybody want to make a motion on that? Here's my question, do we want to combine them, or are we just meeting quarterly?
I probably will abstain on this. Because again, I just think we need to say that we think we're like problem solving before we're highlighting.
Highlighting the problem and strategically planning it without saying where we see the challenge and talking through that process. But yeah, so I won't comment much more on it because I'll
Betsy.
abstain.
Betsy?
So I have a question for you. What is the difference? You keep saying that we have to have a bigger discussion. What's the difference between this and any other like proposed ordinance change that goes through this committee? Because that's essentially what we're doing.
Right, so like when we change an ordinance, there's a why, there's a what is it gonna be? You know, what's the why? I think that
That's
we
gonna
need
be
to
in the
sell the
report.
why to get everybody to come in and
Okay, but like in these discussions, we kind of talked about it before all of this, the discussions of the why. Streamlining, making sure we're not bouncing between and then
right,
financially.
but the board doesn't know there's a why yet.
Well, the.
Right, that's
people
why we
Saturday, I
present it.
watched on Saturday. They
Well,
all
right, and
There
that's-
wasn't
actually talked
anything to
about-
watch. And it was hard to hear.
Well, but that's the entire point of the committee is to
Right.
present it to the board. So
Right.
that's why in these discussions, that's where that should be,
And you gotta remember, it's only a recommendation.
right?
Here's my, okay. Parks, Rec and Cemetery, if we're not meeting as often and just saying we're meeting when we need to meet, I'm okay with it the way it is.
Mhm.
And I loved Parks and Rec. I'm
Mhm.
with Joe. It was a great committee. It was low stress. You got the information. It was
But like this last meeting, we canceled.
right.
Because it
Right.
wasn't necessary.
So that's what
But
I'm saying.
If we do that,
Then I'm okay with leaving it the way it is. I just don't wanna waste taxpayer money, and I know it's not a ton of money, but it does add up.
No,
No, and
no
it's-
committee meetings are required monthly, except for FHR.
Okay.
All of them
Right.
are, if you don't need them, the chair can call it and say.
That's
We really
that's the piece. The chair can call if
Mhm.
you need to meet.
"Mhm,
You get pushed by staff, just want something on it. I'll see the chair will go to staff and say, do you need anything on it? Do you want anything on it? And sometimes it's just one item on it.
mhm, can't wait.
And you're right. It's all depends on a chair. When they call the meeting, and you as a chair should be getting information from staff, what's important to come up. Like, you should be asking, my agenda is this due, what do you have? You email staff and they should give it directly to you.
Mhm.
So I mean,
Some water
obviously, I'm
flame.
not the only one
I
who
have
can
a
make a
drink of
motion.
that.
Does anyone want to make the motion, or are we leaving that for now?
Silence is golden.
I am not right now ready to make a motion. I think, Betsy, could you summarize what you see the advantages of this are? Of combining these two, because if it's really a cost implication, or is it where we have been at two different meetings?
was
And
kind of-
trying to, go ahead.
Sorry, it was kind of both, right? Like if we were gonna have meetings every month, does it make sense to have it meetings every month? Because that's kind of what we did all of last year, was most every month we were having a parks meeting. And then again, that was 2 meetings for Ben, 2 meetings for a lot of people that, I mean, it could have been any, like, right, we've all seen those cartoons, like this could have been an email,
Mhm.
right? So that's kind of what my original discussion was. But if we can drop that down to quarterly, or if all of a sudden something breaks and you need one, that's fine. But just being cognizant that, one, you don't have to meet all the time. And I don't think with parks, it's just my opinion that you don't necessarily need to meet all the time. So that was kind of where I was coming from that. And again, depending on the chair.
I wouldn't want to lock it into quarterly as much as just
Right.
play it by ear so that you are free to call a meeting if it's necessary.
Right.
But not if it's not.
So it was kind of both in my brain, it was both saving finances for like, yeah, those 15-minute meetings, but then limiting Ben's time. But then again, if we're just under the understanding, like we don't have to meet if it's just update on the parks. Yep, parks are there, we're mowing the lawn. We don't need that, right?
The
So
other
just
thing
being
that when-
comfortable with saying we don't need
Yeah.
a meeting.
When I was talking to Ben, I think that scheduling the pit, scheduling streets and parks back to back is
Very
gonna be
efficient.
helpful.
It was very
Mhm.
efficient. I saw
Right.
it operated.
Right.
Is it the same board trustee members on both of those?
No,
No. Okay, all right, so what I'm hearing is we can move on from number 8 to number 9. So consideration of motion to convene into closed session pursuant of Wisconsin statute 19.85 paren 1 paren E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, to wit, Ripple Creek Apartments. And we need to do a roll call vote to go into closed session.
who's making the motion?
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Well,
Well,
wait,
no,
we have to do a
roll
roll call vote.
I,
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. All right, so we're reconvening into open session. At this time, I will make a motion to move the Ripple Creek apartment offer to purchase and to put it on the agenda for a closed session at the next village board meeting.
Good.
Can I get a second? Okay,
Second.
second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so that motion passes. Okay, any old business? Any new business? Correspondence received,
You heard all about it already.
okay. So future agenda items, I have that update on for Wood County IT, we were
Mhm.
going to look at doing next month. We are going to continue to talk about the pros and cons of realignment. And of the pros and cons of a committee, moving to a committee of the whole realignment.
And do your homework.
Mhm.
Yes, everybody has homework, don't forget. Other pieces that I'm missing?
I have to talk about a new website again, just
Okay.
because just because I think we need to continue that conversation and have, I mean, because there are a lot of moving pieces to getting a new website. And what that might look like too. So what we want that to look like. Yep,
Okay, and you
Yep.
have the information on that?
I have the information from the one, but
So if
I
other
can get
people
other-
have, okay,
Mhm.
so if other people have ideas for the website, bring them. Anything else?
To forward on the emails that have the conversation and the process to the committee.
For what? I don't know what you're talking about. There's a lot of
what
them.
you were saying. So could you forward on what you have to the whole committee?
So what I had is the documents that I sent. And then if you scroll down in that, that's where I was reading about.
So what was forwarded just had the documents.
Or
Okay,
maybe I downloaded them and sent them. I
Yeah.
might have done that.
mm,
That would
so
be
what
good
you're
for us to
asking,
all have.
what you're asking is that there was a lot of emails between me and the owners, and between me and Nick and et cetera, to get to this point. And basically, I would have to pull those all together and provide them to the village board as discussion. These items are for discussion, closed session, read them till you get yourself up to date. That's what you're looking for. I think that's right.
And understanding
Yeah.
going in. there.
Yeah, by having all that ahead of time, the same questions that Rick had. Ones who are not involved will have the same questions again. And so, yes, I think that's part of, we can give them the documents to have, and by then I'll have any discussion between our attorney and this party
Right.
again. And by having all those emails there, I mean, because she's the chair, she got all these last emails, which you'd have got.
But for the meeting, when we're discussing the stuff, that's when, you forward on you don't know, Jen.
Okay.
This is not a critical. But
I'm not
those,
worried. You can be critical.
I
That's
don't
what I'm
like,
gonna learn.
I know. But just making sure that we're all understanding that we don't have to ask questions on stuff that is right here.
And I will do
have
that.
anybody
and-
feel uncomfortable. or
I
anything
but I'll
else.
do that, but I know the board members, there'll be some that won't even read them, they'll ask the question at the meeting.
But I will.
Yeah, I know you will.
Okay,
Can we also include the original purchase agreement?
Oh, the one that got turned down, the original.
Yeah,
I
The
mean,
1991
Yes.
or 1990, whatever, 3-1.
Okay,
So we know what we
yes,
have right now.
yes. I'm saying yes to you all the time, yes.
okay. All right.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So any more future agenda items? We've got update Wood County IT, possible, like continuing the realignment discussion, the website discussion. Anything else? Okay, so can we look at a next meeting date? So we are looking in May.
Can we do it right after the one we just got out of, which would be May 22nd?
5:30, May 22nd. I am fine with that here. Oh, no, sorry. Wednesday, May 22nd, I have senior dessert. So my other job takes control of that night completely. Apologies. Normally that date will work for me, but I can
Okay.
do it that day.
I'm.
I mean, I could do it the 21st. I mean, are there other,
What day is it?
the Tuesday, the 21st?
We can.
Does that work for you,
Yeah.
Tigger? All right, so Tuesday, the 21st.
I may not be able to come, but I'll let you know closer to. I'm just waiting on one other thing. But that's not a huge deal. You guys know how to work this.
So Tuesday, the 20th. So the next meeting is going to be Tuesday, the 21st at 5. Do you want 5:30 again or 5?
5 would work.
All right. So Tuesday, May 21st at 5 p.m.
And now you're gonna have one of your pros for our committee as a whole.
What's that?
Now you just talked about one of your pros for the committee as a whole.
Yeah. no joke. Okay, I believe that's it. So I'll call for adjournment at 7:12 p.m. Thanks, Rick.